You've heard of the cost of living. What about the cost of prepping? I thought I'd do some calculations, and if you're like me, you're probably in for a shock. Hi, this is Everyday Prepper. Welcome to the channel. Or welcome back to the channel. I have to apologise, I've been away for a little while. It's like we're moving, but we're going backwards. As I said before, I've been working solid and haven't been able to make any videos for a little while. So I thought I had some time today, and I'll pop back down the boat by the river, make a quick video. In this video, I wanted to try and give a realistic view of what it might be like for a beginner or someone starting out prepping, to get the absolute essentials of prepping down and then build on that. So I've chosen sort of three areas really where you might want to get started. First is storage of food and water. The second is a get home bag, which can double as a bug out bag, so some kind of go bag. And the other one is power generation. Now again, you know, other people might have other ideas on what are essentials. Certainly food storage is definitely an essential. But what I decided to do is look at the absolute bare bones needed and price it up. And I was shocked to say the least. So where does one start? Well, there's different schools of thought. You know, sometimes people will say you might want to have 3 days worth of food and water. I mean, that's a great start. You know, most power outages don't last more than a day. Most water, if water's cut off for any reason, repairs, or you know, next door's having their bathroom fitted or something, it's usually about a day. But there have been occasions recently, I've noticed, where there is a lot of water company, or certainly Southern Water, which is the utility I'm with, have had thousands of people tens of thousands of people without water for a long time, more than 4 or 5 days, more than a week, where they've had to deliver water to the household, and water's been stolen off driveways and all sorts of problems. And that's really because they're not investing enough in the infrastructure. We've had a lot of rain and a lot of sort of extreme weather, but we have had some hot summers. We've had some very wet summers, not particularly extreme cold, but extreme heat in the summers, and I think that takes its toll on the infrastructure. And what's happened is there's been lots of broken and burst pipes where they haven't upgraded their infrastructure. It's given way. So there's a possibility that you could well be without water for for more than a day or so. So the more you can get together, the better. But I wanted to give a realistic example of what it might actually cost to survive off your own preps, your own water storage and your own food storage. So just to get an idea, I mean, I shop at Aldi, I also shop at Sainsbury's. That's the two main supermarkets near me. We've also got a Tesco's not too far away, and I was just comparing prices. And so first of all, when you want to start storing food, you want to think about tins, stuff that lasts a long time, stuff that you're going to eat, that you do regularly eat anyway, maybe just the tinned version, and pasta and rice, and they store for a long time if they're packaged correctly. They don't cost a great deal as well. And so, what I'm talking about here is tins. These are prices of tins currently, and things have gone up by quite a lot. I mentioned the cost of living at the start. So I figured that, in a kind of a survival situation, ideally you want more really, but I would suggest perhaps, 2 full meals a day. If you're eating out of tins, ideally you want some fresh produce as well. And I'll come back to that in a sec. But if you've got, say, 2 meals a day, could be made up of, one meal could be made up of 1 tin of a meat kind of meal with some a tin of vegetables, and then maybe a tin of fruit for afterwards to get your fruit in as well, get your vitamins in. This is, any pasta or rice on top of that would be extra. Anything else on top of that would be extra. So that would be 1 meal. So I'd base this on 2 meals, just 2 meals a day. Now, in tins alone, you're going to be looking at, for one person, those 2 meals is about, at Aldi prices this is, and I've done an average, you're looking at about £3.25 per person per day. With water, and I'm basing that on 5 litres per day, which is just over a gallon of water per day per person, which is what you'd need. Water, I think, was about £1.25 for 5 litres. It's fairly cheap. It'd be better if you could store your own out of the tap and store that into some food grade containers, perhaps. Save you buying some. So that would work out at £4.50 per day. Well, we say about 3 days worth. Well, looking at a family, it can add up. So 1 week for one person in tins and water, £31.50. 1 month per person with water, you're looking at about £135. If you can do your own water out of the tap, you can reduce that to about 97 quid. So you're looking at about £100, and that's on Aldi prices. It doesn't get a lot cheaper than that. So that's on just tins alone, as I said, with just two meals. So that'll be 3 tins twice a day. 3 months, which is kind of the, which is, I suppose, the first major goal of prepping is to have 3 months worth of food and then aim for a year and then go on from there. You know, a year is pretty damn good. But 3 months for one person without any water or purchased water would be 292, nearly £300 just in those tins based on Aldi prices of 2 meals a day. Now, bearing in mind, you know, if you've got a long-term grid down situation or SHTF where you're relying literally on your own preps, you can't get any food from anywhere, then you're going to be in a situation where you're expending a lot more energy. You're going to need a lot more calories, so you probably wouldn't be able to survive on just those 2 tinned meals a day. You'd need other stuff as well to get your nutrients in. So talking about that, you know, this is where bushcraft and foraging skills are very, very important. I'm really lucky. I live near the coast, so you know, fishing for me is a hobby anyway. So getting fish would be no problem, and picking up mussels, cockles and whelks off the shoreline is fairly easy to do, and I've done that on several occasions. You can even get small edible crabs and other prawns and shrimps and that from the shoreline. As well as that, we've got mushrooms. Any kind of woodland will have mushrooms, but you really do need to be careful to make sure you're picking the right stuff. So learning that skill, you know, and it takes quite a long time, but there are countless videos on it. Can't remember the name of a particular channel I watch, but they're really good at identifying. I'll pop a link in the description. They're really good at identifying what you shouldn't eat, helping you sort of narrow down maybe what you found. But I've cooked and eaten foraged mushrooms, and they taste so much better than what's in the shops. So I'd strongly recommend learning that skill. Talking of bushcraft, you may have seen on the community post, I've been invited very kindly to do some demonstrations on solar power and off-grid comms up at the Bushcraft Show 2024, which is on the 25th to the 27th of May, the May bank holiday. And they've also kindly given me a discount code, which I've put in the community post, I believe, which gives you a 15% discount off the tickets. And the tickets are 120 odd quid, so quite a bit. But that does include camping for the weekend as well. So if anyone's going, give us a shout. Maybe just pop me an email, let me know you're there, and then I can say hello. It'd be great to meet some of you. I'll be there for the whole weekend. So that's food, that's water. The other thing as well would be, importantly, learning how to filter your own water and treat it, boil it. So an absolute minimum would be having a small camping gas stove, which you can probably pick up for probably 20 quid. They're not massively expensive. That's one thing I didn't have on my list. But just in case of gas being cut off, you know, it could be anything. It could be gas leak at your neighbour's house, so they have to cut off the whole street for a couple of days, and you know, you normally cook on gas, then you know that would be an essential part of your kit, just to stash away. Stash that in with your food and water, and then you know where it is. Unless you're camping regularly, like I plan to do, or I'm out and about on the boat every now and again, so I bring it down with me. That and purification tablets, very, very handy. And maybe get yourself a life straw as well, which I'm going to cover in a second, which is a personal filter straw, which you can literally filter water directly through, and it gets most of the nasties out and makes water pretty much drinkable. So I want to get home bag. Get home bag or bug out bag, or you know, they're two different things, get home bags and bug out bags, but I use a get home bag. In the UK, bugging out, not really an option, certainly not for me. I've weighed it all up, unless I had to be evacuated for some reason due to some kind of scare in the street, or you know, major catastrophe or flooding or what have you. Flooding is unlikely, I'm on a hill, but you know, any kind of major problem that where I was told that I needed to evacuate, you know, I've got go bags around the house that I could just pick up, but I wouldn't say that would be the first thing that you'd worry about. Maybe a get home bag if you broke down, or if there was traffic built up, or if there was an EMP or a CME or something like that stopped all electrics and you had to get home and you had to trek it back. So having some kind of bag, or even if you're stuck in, you're snowed in, you've got to stay in the car overnight. So things like that, just essential to have a bag to get home. So cost of that, Good rucksack. Rucksacks are pretty cheap, and depending on the size you get and how many gizmos you want it to come with. But I worked out you could probably get a reasonable rucksack for probably about 30-40 litres in size for about 20 or 30 pounds. So it won't be a very good one really for that amount, but it'll be enough to maybe get you home. Medkit. Essential in the household anyway. You'd probably have a first aid kit. I would maybe just try and spend a little bit extra on a med kit so it's got all of the stuff that you'd need in there. And I've been looking at med kits that cost about 20 quid online. They're quite comprehensive. They've even got emergency blankets in, like those space blankets. They've got rubber gloves in. They've got eye flushing water and all that kind of stuff, and various kits for patching you up. Other thing you'd have in your go bag. Now, this is absolute essentials in your go bag. There's a lot of other kit that I would put in my go bag that's not on here, but this is just sort of real bare bones stuff. I'm trying to keep the cost down, just to give you a realistic idea of what it might cost to actually get started. So snack bars, these energy bar things, they're quite pricey. You can probably find like flapjacks and things like that, which would be a bit cheaper, but I don't know quite how well they'd store. These other ones that are in thick wrappers are probably better, like the grenade bars and that kind of thing, although those are protein. Ideally you want some energy bars if you're having to bug out of your vehicle and walk home. But you're looking at about £1.80 a bar. For about 20 quid you can probably get a pack of several. That's what I've done, but I'd estimate let's say 3 bars in your bag. So you're looking at about £5 or £6 just for the energy bars. We talked about a life straw. So it depends on how long you're going to be. I mean, I work quite local to home, so for me, getting back home is literally just a walk down the road. It's not, maybe a mile or two. I'm not really going to need to go filtering water out of puddles, but if you're 50, 100 miles away from home and you've got to trek it, you're going to need a tarp with you. You're going to need some kind of place to set up camp and rest, maybe even camp overnight, depending on the season and the weather. But bare bones again. A life straw is always handy anyway. It's a handy way of having a filter system at home, and they're about 30 quid. I did see some others on Amazon for less than that, but I don't know the makes, so I don't know whether to trust them or not. Got to have a torch. Got to have lots of torches. Ideally, I'm going to come back to power generation and lighting in a second, but yeah, rechargeable torch, one of these tactical torch type things. I've got a few of those in each one of my bags, and they're about 10 or 15 pounds each. Battery bank, I think, is essential. Where I'm driving a lot all day, I keep battery banks in my car and I cycle them around so that my phone stays charged up, because I'm using navigation systems all the time, and it draws the battery down a lot. So a battery bank is always helpful. So generally I'll always have one battery bank out of the 2 is fully charged, and then I'll just switch them over. There's that interim period obviously while I'm waiting for the other one to charge up, but generally I'll have one that's pretty much charged up, and that would go straight into the go bag if you had to get out. And they're about £20 each. So I'd also recommend a multi-tool, so that'll have some sort of cutting implement in it, and they come in at about 15, 20, 30 pounds, depending on how many functions you want on there. If you want scissors and a saw and all that kind of stuff. But generally they come with a knife, pliers, bottle opener, that kind of stuff as standard. You'll want to have some water in your go bag as well, which could be tap water in a bottle, just stashed in there. Maybe cycle that through every couple of months. And then another suggestion is have some spare clothes or some boots or walking shoes in your go bag as well, which you might already have at home anyway. You can just bung those in the bag, so not necessarily an extra cost. So total cost really to get a go bag together with absolute basics. This is including an energy bar and energy bars and a water filter. Would be about £122, and I've looked at kind of bare minimum there. If you take the water filter out, which is about 30 quid, you're looking at about £90 just to get a go bag together in your car. So of course, if you've got plenty of spare cash, then that's great. You can buy it all. In fact, you can upgrade all the gear. Make sure when you get a multi-tool, get the top brand, get a Gerber or even better. And then lastly, I wanted to look at power generation. So if the lights go out, power cuts. The government seems to think that, or government agencies seem to think that the majority of power cuts for most people last about an hour. I'd probably concur with that, although there's been an increase in power outages recently where people have had no power for weeks in the UK. So although our grid infrastructure is intact and we have plenty of power, the actual infrastructure is not that intact. It seems to be going down. There's also a massive load of housing development going on at the moment, which certainly in my area, and they keep cutting through cables or having to cut off cables while they're putting up these houses. And it's a shame for the residents who have just moved into one brand new estate to have their power down for several days at a time, if not more. So I believe power generation is an absolute essential. Now, I haven't touched on comms for the basics because a set of walkie-talkies will probably do you, to get started with. I've done videos on off-grid comms and grid down comms and that kind of stuff, but we'll keep it simple to start with. This is kind of aimed at really just starting out. So the simplest thing to do would be, so if you want to keep your mobile, assuming that your mobiles are still usable and you've got no power, but you need to keep your mobiles charged up, but the phone masts still work, you want to keep your phone up but you've got no power in the house, the easiest way to do it would be to buy something like this, which I've just been using to charge up my power bank. So this is my power bank, and this is a 20 watt, it's only a 20 watt solar panel. It just folds up, got a little USB connector on there, and it's good to go. You just literally open it up, set it out in the sun, and it will charge a power bank, it will charge a battery, a phone or a radio quite happily. And you can get larger versions of these, 30, 40 watt, and they're pretty good. They cost a little bit, 30, 40 quid. But for power generation as an absolute basic, that would be your cheapest option. Another option as well is something like this. I picked up the other day on Amazon. It was only about £14, I think. It's got a solar panel on the top. It's a lamp, it's a little lantern, but I got it for camping. And you open it up, it's got a nice light on it. It's also got a torch function on there. And the great thing about this is you can charge it up by USB. It's also got a handle on here, so you can wind it up, if it is absolutely necessary. You've got your solar panel, so there's 3 different ways of charging it up. And because it's got a lithium battery in there, it also has a USB output, which you can use for maybe charging your phone up, wind it up and then charge your phone up. So a real essential piece of kit, certainly for me, going out and about, camping, down on the boat. Really, really useful. And again, that was about £14, I think, something like that. So if you wanted to go a bit further than that though, what I'd recommend is getting yourself a proper solar setup for home, so you can get some lighting off of it and you can get many USBs off of it, and start really charging stuff up. Start using a laptop off of it as well, perhaps with an inverter. And I've broken down some cost for you. So 100 watt solar panel, you want a monocrystalline solar panel rather than a polycrystalline, just because they're in the UK they gather more sunlight more efficiently, and they're better on cloudy days as well. I found one, the cheapest I could find on Amazon was about £59, £60. And that's an eco-worthy panel. I'll put a link in the description. The panel will be then used to charge a battery. So there are lithium-ion batteries, but they are still very, very expensive. They're about 3 to 4 times the price of a lead-acid battery. So I would use a lead-acid leisure battery, not a car battery. Car battery would work, but it's not designed for constant discharging and recharging. It's designed for big hits in one go to start your engine. It's not designed to gradually have a drain off of it, like for lighting and USB charging, that sort of stuff. So you want a leisure battery. Cheapest one I could find that would be useful with a 90 amp hour one would be about £59, about £60. So again, about the same as the solar panel. So solar panel 100 watt, £60 for your battery. I haven't included price for wires and leads and everything else, so you probably want to add about maybe £10 or £20 for that. And then you want a charge controller to go between the solar panel and the battery. Please check out my other videos as well, where I've gone into a lot more detail on how to hook all of this up. And hopefully I'll get some video footage of the demonstrations that I'll be doing at the Bushcraft show as well. So you want a charge controller between the solar panel and the battery. The charge controllers can vary, they vary wildly. There's two different types. You've got PWM and you've got MPPT. I'm not going to go into detail of that, but the MPPTs are more expensive and they get more out of your solar panel. Basically they work in a completely different way to the PWM. PWM charge controller you can get for about £7 online, so really cheap, and they also have some USB ports on them as well, so you can hook them up to your battery, hook them up to your solar panel, and they've got USB ports and you're good to go. You know, you don't need really any extra kit. You can charge your phone off it, you can charge torches with it and that sort of stuff. MPPT chargers cost around £30 or £40, so big difference to £7. But there's a whole host of different tech in there. They'll last a lot longer and they'll work a lot better over a longer period of time. So it depends what your budget is, depends what your plans are. Then you could get like a USB car socket, so you can get you know, those things you plug into your car, into your cigarette lighter socket in the car, with a couple of USB on there that you charge your phone. You can get those with wires on the end that can attach directly to a 12-volt battery, and it does all the conversion down to USB. So those cost about £12. That's about the cheapest I could find it online, although you do get 2 for that. So that means you get 4 charging ports off your battery. So that would last. That would mean you could charge a lot of devices on the go at once. The other thing you could do also is add an inverter. If you're going to use an inverter to convert from 12 volts DC to household AC, so same as what you use in your house, then you'd be looking at about £50 upwards. Make sure you get a sine wave, pure sine wave inverter. And again, my videos before in my channel, you'll see that they go into a lot more detail on that. So without the inverter, just a basic setup like that, it's going to cost you about £140, and that's kind of bare minimum. Doesn't include wires, so that's just the panel, the charge controller and the battery, and maybe the USB charging gizmo that you can plug your phones in and what have you. So, you know, what's the total we've got here? We've got £140 for solar. You got a total of 122 for the get home bag, so that's about 260 odd, and then food, you know, for a month, 300. So 300 odd pounds. You could have a bit of food put away, a go bag, and you know, a solar panel setup that would last you a long time, and would also be expandable very east It's quite a big outlay. It's, you know, it could be. I was quite shocked, especially with the food, how much food's gone up over the years. You know, on tins alone. So you want to bulk that out with, as I say, you know, foraging techniques, and also store some pasta and rice. Ideally, make your own bread. You know, have because that's a great staple. Store some flour. And you can store flour with some really cheap oxygen remover tablets, and you just store it in a nice sealed box with the oxygen removers. You can even put some silica gel in there just to stop a bit of moisture getting in there. And, you know, that'll store for quite some time. Some people have recommended as well that you divide up the flour into smaller packets, freeze it a few times, and then defrost it, freeze it, just to kill anything in there, kill the eggs of weevils, because you always get weevils in flour. But it doesn't matter for me; it's extra protein. We make our own bread all the time, and we actually cheat. We use a bread mixer to mix the bread, but that's run off our solar system, so it doesn't cost us anything to run. So yeah, I thought I'd just give you an idea of you know, how much that might cost to get started. Obviously, you can start where you want. Really, the first thing you absolutely want to do is start putting some food away. But you know, when people do say, and you get these, you know, prepper hauls and things I've seen online, where, you know, people say, just start by putting 1 tin away. You know, 1 tin away per week. Well, you know, based on what I've said there, you'd need 4 tins just for one meal. So that's 4 weeks before you've just got one meal stashed, which would probably seem quite disheartening. So you might want to buy, I remember seeing a video by Panda Outdoors, another channel I watch, and he was doing some prepper shopping, food for, and I thought it was quite interesting how he did it. He bought the tins in meal format, so he was looking, right, there's a meal in the bag, there's another meal, that's all I can afford today, we'll get the next one next week. So a really good idea, whereas what I've always done is literally just gone meat in the bag, next week we're going for veg, you know, but it's a much more organised way of doing it. So but each to their own. You might find something completely different works for you, but the main thing is do something. You know, research it as much as you can, and you know, I did go through in quite a bit of detail before about the technique that I would use now if I was to start afresh, would be where I'd go through my routine, look for any disruptions to that routine, and have I got a backup for each bit of my routine. And by doing that, you'd end up having, you know, it takes time, but eventually you would have enough preps to cover a lot of different eventualities. So, you know, rather than preparing for one particular event, that's what I'd recommend, and get the basics squared away. So I hope you have found this interesting. It's good to be back online, and it's also great to be back on the boat again. I'll be doing some recce's for some camping trips. I'm going to be doing some wild camping trips. Now we've got some good weather, or at least it's warm. I don't care if it's raining, but I'm going to be going out on some treks and looking for some spots, and then I'm going to hopefully film some outdoor stuff soon as well. So okay, so I've had to do the last bits of what I was going to talk about up on deck because my GoPro camera decided to shut down because it's too hot. Apparently this is a common problem. So I've just changed a couple of the settings as well, so you might see a slightly different so you might be able to notice some difference in the video settings. But anyway, what I was going to say was you know, all of these costs and everything else, they do add up, and I know that. But I also did a quick calculation of all the insurances that I pay to insure my house, and you know, you consider prepping as a bit of insurance. You know, you insure your car. I have AA cover, I have life cover, I have house insurance, I have boat insurance, and it all adds up to my costs are about they're over £160 every month. And I don't think I've ever made a claim. The only claim I've ever made was a mobile phone that decided to overheat and blow up, and I claimed that on my home insurance, and never got my premiums didn't increase. It wasn't really counted as a claim, and I think years and years ago I did a windscreen claim on my car, but that was it. So that's the only claims I think I've ever made in my life, and I've paid out probably thousands and thousands of pounds over the years in insurance and never used it. The great thing about prepping and spending money on the prepping gear is you've still got it, and you can use it for all sorts of things, and I've had to use mine on a number of occasions for various eventualities. So it's just a point I wanted to make. Anyway, in the meantime, I hope this has been interesting for you, and as a beginner prepper, you know, just start somewhere, just do something, and you know, don't let the cost put you off. If it means you have to put one tin aside a week, then do that. You know, don't not do it just because of something I've said. You know, just you got to start somewhere, all right, and then build on it from there. Or maybe a bag of pasta instead of buy a bag of pasta instead of a tin. Probably cost about the same amount of money if you're looking at tinned meat. You know, and that'll probably give you several meals rather than just the one. So as I say, I hope you found this interesting. If you have, please like and subscribe to the channel. You'll get lots more tips like this, and as I say, we've got detailed videos on solar panel setup, off-grid comms, and general prepping ideas. And also, you know, if you do subscribe, please join the community on the chat and get involved. There's a lot of wealth of knowledge on there. So I just wanted to mention one of my subscribers has given me some details of a website that he's put together. He's from New Zealand. Won't be giving his name out, but he's got a prepper group of about 20 people. absolutely fantastic. He preps or practices every month with all of this group of preppers, and they range from ex-police, ex-nurses, doctors, military, and what have you. So there's a wealth of experience there, and they've put together a website that he's passed over to me to have a look at. I've looked at all the downloads; they're all legit, and he's got loads of PDF downloads on there. Some are very, very technical in nature, but there's some really in-depth stuff about and ideas about prepping. So it's another great resource. I'll put a link in the description. Please check it out. And as I said, you don't need any logins or anything like that, or sign-ups or anything like that at all. You just literally go on it and you can download whichever PDF you want. It's very easy to browse, and the site works really well. So yeah, I'd recommend that. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching. I hope to see some of you at the Bushcraft show on the 25th to the 27th. And if I don't, in the meantime, stay prepared. Thank you.